Hi there, this is Harry and welcome back to Advanced English Lessons with Harry, where I try to help you to get a better understanding of the English language. We're trying to help you to get ready for any proficiency exams that you're doing, if you're preparing for a job interview in English, or if you just want to improve conversational English, business English, well, you've come to the right place. And remember, if you want to write to me, you can do so, www.englishlessonviaskype.com. Very happy to hear from you and I'll help you in any way that I can. So back to our lesson, and in this particular lesson, it's an advanced English lesson. We're looking at verbs to describe reading. Okay, all of these are verbs to describe reading. I'll give you the particular verb and then I'll give you a situation, an example as to how you can use them. In total, we've got 10, so not so long, but just hold on to the end because I'm going to explain the difference between two verbs that often get confused. So wait for that. Okay, let's get back to the lesson. So as I said, advanced English lesson. These are verbs, 10 verbs connected with reading. So the first, to flick through something. Flick through something. You know when you're sitting in the waiting room for the dentist or the waiting room for the doctor and there are a bunch of magazines, usually old and out of date, it has to be said, but you pick one up because you're bored and you're waiting your turn and you flick through quickly to see if there's any article that you might be interested in reading. So you don't read the magazine cover to cover, you flick through it with your fingers to find something a little bit more interesting. To glance. Well, if you're in a hurry and you pick up a newspaper, you might glance at the headlines quickly. You don't read it from cover to cover, page to page. You glance at the key headlines to see if there's something that you should be interested in or something you should know about. Okay, so to glance. So a glance means a quick read. So somebody drops a document on your desk and they might literally ask you, could you give that a quick glance? So they don't expect you to read every bit of it, but they want you to familiarize yourself with some of it, glance at it, get the key points so that you'll be ready for the meeting. Okay, so to glance. To look through means to look at something and read it in a little bit more attentively. Okay, so to look at it in a little bit more detail. So again, that document lands on your desk and you tell them that you don't have time to read it now, but you look through it later. So when you have time, you'll spend time and you'll get to know what's in the document so you'll be ready to ask some questions. So to look through. Or you might have some interviews to do because you need to recruit some people. So a pile of CVs lands on your desk or they come into your inbox, so you look through them in a little bit of detail to see if any of them fit straight away for the particular job that you have in mind, particularly if you want to draw up a short list for interview purposes. So you'll look through each of the CVs to see if they have the sort of credentials and skills that you're looking for. To look through. To browse. Well, this is one of my favorite pastimes. If I can find a bookshop, I like to browse. Means to go in and go from shelf to shelf, up and down to see the titles, even just to look at the covers of the books, who's writing new books, who's published new books, some of your favorite authors perhaps that you'd like to pick up on and get another book to read. So you browse, you find the titles, you find the authors, and then you might pick up the occasional book, turn it over and read the opinions of some other writers as to what this book is about. To browse. And of course, in the modern world, we browse the internet, so we go up and down looking for something of interest. To scan. Well, scan means to look at something in a little bit of detail, but quickly. Okay, so if you get a document that lands on your desk, you'll scan it to see, first of all, are there any mistakes? Certainly I do. If somebody sends me a note, I scan it quickly to see if I can pick up any grammar mistakes, and then I look through it a little bit more thoroughly to see what the content is about. So when we scan something, we look at it quickly but methodically to pick up on any points that we really want to check. So to scan. So you can, there's a thing called speed reading. There's a certain way of practicing to do it where you pick out the key words and the key sentences so that you'll be able to get a good understanding of what the article is without having to read all of it, so to scan. But usually a machine will scan something. An X-ray machine will scan your body. So with your eyes, when you're reading, you're going from left to right to scan each sentence, each paragraph, to pick out key words. To devour, well, we spoke about devour before when we're talking about eating food. So when you devour a book, it means you can't stop reading it. And, I have a really, really big appetite for books and I love reading them. So when I get a really good book, I will devour it, meaning I will almost eat it. I will read it cover to cover in as few days as possible because I can't put the book down. It's a real page turner. So to devour a book means to read it with great detail, great interest and passion. To devour. Okay, and if you do happen to like this particular lesson, then please like the video, and if you can, subscribe to our channel because it really, really helps. To pore over, well, when we pore over a document, we study it in great detail. He's been poring over those accounts for hours now. He's really examining them in every detail. I'm really happy that we spent so long preparing them because, if we'd made any mistakes, he would certainly be on the warpath. So to pore over a document or to pore over the numbers is to really analyze them in great detail so you can see every little bit and piece of them. To pore over. To skim. Well, to skim means to read very, very quickly. So your boss might ask you, did you read those documents? I skimmed over them quickly last night. I have a general idea what they're about. Are there any of them that are more important than others and I can read them a little bit more carefully? So when you skim over or skim through something, you don't read every page. In fact, you probably only read the summary page, but you skim through it just to make sure that there's nothing there that's going to catch you out. So to skim over or to skim through a document. To rifle through. Okay, so and to rifle means to look at pages, but you tend not to do it in a tidy way. Okay, so when you rifle through a folder or rifle through a file, you're pulling pages out. Perhaps you're in a bit of a rush trying to find something that you missed the last time, or trying to find an important reference that you really need. So you go through it, some bits very quickly, others in more detail, but not with any great order. To rifle through. Now, two words, as I said, that get confused: to study and to learn. So when we study something, particularly when we're talking about reading, then we read, memorize, and we are very attentive. Okay, so you could be studying chemistry. Okay, so you're reading chemical formulas. You could be studying biology, so you're looking at photosynthesis or whatever it is to do with the production of plants. So to study means to look at something in great detail. Now, the difference between learning and studying is the following. So when we study, we read and we memorize. And then when we learn, we gain knowledge. Now, that could be from studying, or it could be from listening, okay? Or we are told something by our teacher. So we can learn that way. We don't necessarily have to read, but when we study, we do have to read to gain that particular knowledge, to memorize facts. So I can study very hard before an exam, but I can learn over the whole course, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, but I study very hard just before each semester exam. Okay, so to study and to learn. So there you have it. Those are the explanations of the verbs, or 10 verbs about reading. So let me give them to you one more time. To flick through something. To glance at something. To look through a book or a magazine or a document. To browse the bookshelves in the bookshop, to browse. To scan. To devour, to really get into it and read it in detail, to devour. To pore over, spend many, many hours looking at documents, to pore over. To skim, to look at very quickly, to skim. to rifle through, and then finally to study. And just remember that difference between learning and studying and learning. Okay, so those are the 10 particular verbs connected with reading, verbs that you can use to describe reading. As always, try to practice them, try to understand them, try in particular to understand the difference between certain ways of reading. What's fast reading, what's quick reading, what you do quickly if you want to pick up on some information, and others that you might go through in a little bit more detail. So if you have any difficulty with them, contact me. I'll very happily give you some more examples or other words if you need them. Okay, so this is Harry, as always, thanking you for listening and watching. Join me for the next lesson.